Jim Harbaugh was filed in a class action suit in the investigation of federal matters as well, in reference to the computer scandal with oh my God, I can't even read my Matt Weiss. So yes. we bring into the situation, Joe, that he's filed in it along with the AD's office. I guess your thoughts with this whole situation, and let me just ask a question. At what point should we ask the question that a lack of institutional control should be opened? Like, okay. I mean, we're getting to a place where this is a fine line that we're talking about here.
Okay.
With Connor Stallions and with this whole situation.
Okay. So I've been a defender of Harbaugh in Michigan throughout a lot of this stuff. I don't think I can defend them as easily today, but I've got a lot to dig into. This is completely separate. For anyone who jumps in and says anything about sign stealing, this has nothing, zero, to do with the sign stealing scandal. He was not accessing computer information from other teams to steal signs. There's nothing to do with it. He was hacking into students, female students of the University of Michigan, student athletes, to get intimate images of them from their phones, from their iCloud accounts. It was a very disgusting, nefarious thing that he was doing. This suit that is occurring, Harbaugh and the administration were added to it because it was believed that they turned a blind eye during the Fiesta Bowl run in which they faced off against TCU. And they waited until after the Fiesta Bowl to fire him. I am not going to jump, Blake, to the lack of institutional control commentary yet. I need to see, and I want to see, what is the result of this civil suit? What is found? I don't want to go and yet to accuse, because there's a couple steps that we have to do to get there to talk about institutional control. If it is found, though, Blake, that he and the administration did turn a blind eye to this, and they're able to clearly prove it, and they don't just settle. If they clearly prove it, then yes, I am on your side. Because then we get to this spot now where we're talking about how he claims he didn't know that Connor Stallions was doing what he did. He was a rogue actor who did it on his own volition. Well, he had no control over him. You had no control over Matt Weiss, who was going around being a disgusting piece of shit, doing the things that he was doing. I am willing to make that and flip off of my original argument that I had in the different instances that we have talked about this once we know the results of the court case. But because we don't, I am in wait and see mode.
All right. Here's where I am. You've given teams that with less. You've investigated teams for lack of institutional control for far less. I think the NCAA is scared to make a move because of every time that they make a move, they keep getting denied. They keep getting clapped. Every time that they try to do something, it's hit with a lawsuit and they have zero power. That's why I think that they're not trying to go after this at a harder rate and level that they should be. Joe, he's on your staff. You have the other Connor Stallions investigation. How many level 1 violations at one school do you need before this become a thing? We can have our disagreements on the sign stealing. You and I have our disagreements on the sign stealing, and that's okay. At the end of the day, that's not that is far less of what is happening here.
Yeah.
Far less. When you add it to this dude allegedly getting intimate photos, graphic things with other student athletes, Joe, what was he doing with them? Like, I would want to know why do we always end the conversation of that he just took them? Joe, nobody's taking them and just keeping them to themselves.
But hold on, though. We're not talking about Weiss, so we're talking about Harbaugh. We're talking about Harbaugh's involvement.
Hold on.
With
this. Okay, hold on. I'm getting there. Okay. All of that being said, Joe, he said that Harbaugh said that he did not know anything about this until after the playoff run. The investigation opened up when?
I don't know. Was that stated?
Right around the playoff run. Joe, nothing like that they're not doing an investigation that quickly and it be like a couple of days. So there had to have been rumors, had to have been stuff going. He didn't just one day somebody walked in on him, he was doing it, the next day he was gone. Did not happen. It's not how these things work.
My only thing is, and I'm not trying to defend either side with this. I promise I'm not trying to.
Hold on, very clearly.
Yeah.
That's why I implicate Harbaugh. So just so that
I lean on your side that Harbaugh is probably in the wrong here. And I really don't think that there is a world where he's going to come out of this unscathed. Like I really think that as this specifically piles up, to be named in something like this is a serious concern. And if he does get implicated, they should, as to reiterate what I said, they should get investigated for a lack of institutional control. They absolutely 100% should be. I just think that as we have seen in the past, other coaches be immediately and abruptly be fired, that there probably was some sort of a waiting period before the investigation had completed. That was how I read into it. That is what I'm inferring, that didn't want to fire him and then have to deal with a wrongful termination suit. I mean, that's what happened with Pitino, with Rick Pitino, that they fired him before they completed an investigation and then he filed a wrongful termination suit. And I don't remember the conclusion of that because I'm not very well read up on it, but it just, you get just as much trouble as you get in for it happening. If it was alleged and it didn't happen, they have to do their again, I'm not trying to defend Harbaugh by any means. I'm not. I do agree with you though. I think that once this gets settled, I have no idea how long this court case is going to last, Blake. But if it is proven that Harbaugh and the administration knew and they meandered about, they weren't aggressive, they should be investigated for institutional control. I completely agree with that.
I mean, Joe, even if there's a situation where it's just Weiss that's implicated in all of this, forget Harbaugh for just a minute, because really and truthfully, in this instant, that has nothing to do with it for me. Harbaugh being added to the class action has absolutely nothing to do with it. If he is found guilty of this, if he is actually guilty of this, and everything that was surrounding that program during the playoff run, if you want me to sit here and act as if just because Harbaugh may or may not have known that you can sit still on any of this with the only repercussions being a fine, Joe, this is where I think that you got to be behind the NCAA in this. Michigan fans will come in this chat, they will come in our clip video, and they will defend Michigan without a doubt. And they should. They're fans. That's a school that they love. But I have one question for them. What if he's guilty?
That's what I'm saying. If he is guilty, I think it completely changes the scope of the entire thing. I think it does.
And it should change, for what it's worth, what we view about the Stallion situation in this one instance. Brother, that's a lot of shit going on, and I bet there was a lot of shit that did not get caught. What else were you doing?
Oh, well, that is always the case when we've got two serious instances that are in completely different realms of what they were. I look at you've watched the Miami documentaries of when they were at their peaks at the two different times
doubt.
They were, and they named all of the different types of violations that they had throughout those periods of time. Players getting paid, issues with academic eligibility, like all of those things from top down. There absolutely was more than just these two things going on that weren't found. again, and Elks, you didn't listen to what I said, by the way, with the comment that you just brought up. There's not much more wrong stuff that needs to be had. All I am saying
you want
is
them to be guilty before they're hit with something.
Yeah, you're not going to hit them with a lack of institutional control without this lawsuit being finished.
Okay,
That's why I think the NCAA hasn't done anything and has not started an investigation. Because now you have those two things. Wait 1 second. If you have those two things, the Stallions ordeal and you have this lawsuit finalized, then you can dig further to find out what other things could have been happening.
Okay, hold on. I agree with what you just said. If you hit them with it, meaning you convict them of it, yes, hit them with a lack of institutional control. Joe, there have been schools that have been investigated 8 to 10 plus years on lack of institutional control. You can send an NOI, a notice of allegations, to them and start investigating. They do not need anything else other than the allegations to investigate. They have to send first a notice of allegations before the investigation can even start. So they're already behind the ball on this. They're already, you got to, telling a school that you're going to investigate them versus actually hitting them with it are two different things. What I'm calling for is to hit them with a notice of allegations in reference to lack of institutional control. That's all I'm asking. And you know what? You are not the criminal or civil defense. You can determine your own investigation about a completely different matter other than the court system.
That's fair.
You know, like you do not need them. So, Joe, we're going to get to a place, and unfortunately for Michigan, Joe, what if this doesn't get wrapped up from the NCAA or the College Football Commission, whoever's investigating this at the time?
This is going to be NCAA. This isn't College Sports Commission related.
Right.
Yeah.
Joe, it might be another 5 years before you get an ultimate determination. I've lived this with Will Wade, Ed Orgeron, Les Miles. Lived it. Joe, it was an 8-year process. LSU was winning a national title with women's basketball when this was being settled a decade later. Joe, LSU had 3 coaches by then. They had 3 new football coaches by then.
Yeah.
That's the point that I'm trying to make that sucks for Michigan fans too. Am I going to be in 2030 and this shit be over and this shit just happening? Like what? That's the point of where I'm trying to get at. That's why the notice of allegations this was my whole point with the Stallions thing too. When you got so much shit being collaborated, the Stallions thing should have been in the cherry on top for you to really go after a program for lack of institutional control. Or the sprinkles, whatever. If you don't like cherry, whatever it is, the whipped cream, the chocolate chips, I don't care.
I think that we already talked about this. The recruiting violations thing to me I thought was really stupid.
I agree.
I think
dogs, that's dumb.
Yeah, and we talked about this. Part of the allegation comes from the fact that they FaceTime with kids while they were out working out during a dead period. Like it was so nitpicky. But I think that is the indicator, though, Blake, that the NCAA does have some sort of an intention here. Because if you start with the small thing, the easy thing to prove, the thing at the top to prove, to deliver violations for, that one's not going to hit hard. That hammer's not going to hit hard. All right, then we can move on to the sign stealing. We could dig into the sign stealing. Then we can dig into what's going on with this Weiss situation, because that is a case that is happening outside of the realm of college football.
And listen, if you put those other 2 instances, and listen, we have not brought up recruiting here at all in reference to any of this, because both of us thought it was bullshit. So what? Harbaugh fed kids at a summer camp. I got to be honest. So what? Like, come on. He fed.
Well, it was he bought a kid a burger at one of the diners or something like that. Joe, I forget what it was.
Come on,
right?
Come on. I mean, we're all
Right.
humans in all this. Like, so I get they're probably talking about like lavish dinners. That's not what the rule's intended for. But there comes a point in time where, you know what you could have done? You could have said, we're going to hit you with these two things, or we might even hit you with one of them. But we've opened the investigation, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to wait until the court decides what's going to happen with Weiss, and we're going to back up and say, whatever their determination is, we're going to agree with it. And then that way, Joe, for what it's worth, the thing that gets me the most is mainly due to the fact of everything that's going on. And I do really wonder what would happen if this happened to another school. Joe, think about I use Tennessee as an example. How long did it take them to open up an investigation on Nico Iamaleava? Boy, they hit Tennessee back to back. I mean, they did
because I think that one was really cut and dry, though. It's like, hey, kid was on a plane that he wasn't supposed to be on. Boom, we're going to hit him with they had just finished investigating them for
Jeremy
something else,
Pruitt.
so probably easy for them to have their fingers dug in it. Wait, let me ask you this, though.
Okay.
You mentioned that you cover LSU, and they're one of the most recent examples of lack of institutional control that we have that honestly didn't get the same amount of light that I think people realize it's like an allegation like this probably should. What was the main drive? What were the driving incidents?
Les Miles had covered up sexual abuse. Okay. So kind of a same level, but not really.
Different.
It was
But it was directly him.
That Ed Orgeron covered up domestic violence, which that got proven in court to be not true.
Which is part of my point of we can't jump to a conclusion.
Correct. Darius Geis. Remember the whole Darius Geis situation? Yeah. Okay, that was thrown into
basketball program that was,
and then the basketball program got thrown in there. So it's basically, I don't want to say it's the same thing, but think about this: Ed Orgeron was not your head coach. Was not your head coach when that investigation got launched. He was your interim head coach. A notice of allegations came the day, a week later after he was named the head coach. And by the way, you know why LSU went in the portal for a quarterback and got this dude? Because they had a reduction of scholarships and a reduction of recruiting time during the summer. It led them to Burrow.
So I'm asking you these questions, though, about that process. Was it multiple layers of them getting different violations before they got hit?
No, what happened to them was civil lawsuits kept popping up because everybody got fired at LSU. And and then remember the Les Miles at Kansas. Yes. Les Miles was hired and fired at Kansas before it got settled.
Okay.
And then when Les got put into the investigation of it,
yes,
that's when the next day, if you remember, that he got fired.
Yeah.
So again, Joe, they just got done figuring it out last year.
That is just the final indicator here for this segment of they're probably going to get hit with it. And that was what I was trying to say with this, is that it's going to come at some point for the reasons that I brought up at the beginning of the segment of if we map all this out, this is a problem. This was proof that there was not control by the administration, that they allowed all these things to happen. And what else were we missing that didn't get reported, that no one noticed? What other crazy shit was going on? It's certainly possible that there was more, but there is a slow legal play out that has to happen before they jump to it. They can't just jump to it and say that we want to hit you with this before anything's been proven.
And listen, I don't disagree. I don't disagree on that point. That's why I said investigate the first two, hit him with the first two, and if in civil court this comes out that he's guilty, then hit him with it.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe, at some point they got to get hit big, but they got to get popped by something. They can't get a slap on the wrist.